Order. Question number 2, the Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Mr Speaker, this question is to the Prime Minister and asks, does he stand by all his statements?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, yes.
Supplementary question, Speaker.
Supplementary question, Right Honourable Winston Peters.
When he said, and I quote him, I think New Zealand is a far better and richer country for having migration in the way that we do, end of quotes. Why did he ignore the widespread immigration fraud in the Indian student market that is now reaching into hundreds and even thousands of people?
Speaker.
Order. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
New Zealand is a better country for migration. I can think of many examples. I can think of an Indian person that came to New Zealand 44 years ago, set up a business, employed 200 people, and from time to time made donations, forgettable or not, to political parties that they thought about. Mr Speaker, that's all as a result of migration, funnily enough, from India.
Second question.
Order. 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 The House on my right-hand side will settle. Supplementary question. The Right Honourable Winston Peters.
How sane is an immigrant that would offer $20,000 to have breakfast with him and
Order. Again, I'm asking for a second time for a little more respect from my right-hand corner.
And is he aware of Operation Silver Needle by Immigration New Zealand, Mumbai in November 2014 that found 90% of the applicants not bona fide, and that such organised fraud continues to tarnish our export education reputation?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Answer the first part of the question, very, and an answer to the second part of the question, no.
Oh, very no. Okay. Supplementary question, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary question, Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Why did he say that his government is, quotes, working for all New Zealanders, end of quotes, when we currently have 15,000 unemployed New Zealand labourers, whilst his government approved work visas for 6,500 foreign labourers?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, most of that is because of mismatch of labour, so it's required in one part of the country and people are located in the other, or, as I said yesterday on Morning Report, people might have a variety of reasons, from being unable to pass a drugs test or a variety of other factors. So, Mr Speaker, of course, Work and Income do everything they can to get people in work, and one of the major changes this government made was to reface, if you like, the way Work and Income operates, to get rid of the old dole and to replace it with job seeker support, and that's been highly effective.
Supplementary question, Speaker.
Order. Supplementary question, Right Honourable Winston Peters.
How is his government working for all New Zealanders when his government has approved as skilled migrants, dog handlers and dance teachers, and over 10,000 chefs, more than the restaurants we've got in this country, whilst we have 70,000 New Zealand youth not in employment, education or training?
Well, Mr.
The
Speaker,
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
There's nothing wrong with bringing in chefs. For some people, particularly Indian, they can be very lucrative.
Question number 3,